High Commander Vex Talon stood before the assembled war council of the Draconian Empire, his scales gleaming with the satisfaction of a predator who had just cornered easy prey. For 3 millennia, his species had dominated this sector of the galaxy through superior firepower and ruthless expansion. Today, they had identified their next target. "Honored Council," he announced, his voice carrying the resonant authority that had intimidated dozens of species into submission. "Our scouts have identified a perfect candidate for annexation, a young species calling themselves humans from a system designated Sol 3. Preliminary analysis indicates they are weak, divided, and technologically primitive." The council chamber, carved from the living rock of their homeworld's largest moon, echoed with approving growls and the scraping of claws against stone. Representatives from conquered species cowered in their designated spaces, forced to witness yet another civilization's doom being planned. War Minister Krathhook activated the holographic display, showing Earth's continents and the scattered human settlements throughout their local system. Intelligence reports indicate they are still confined to a single star system, engaged in primitive resource conflicts, and lack any unified planetary government. Their military technology appears to be chemical-based projectile weapons and crude nuclear devices. High Commander Vex Talon's inner eyelids flicked with contempt. How pathetically typical. Another species that learned to split atoms before learning to split their own stupidity. "What is their fleet strength?" "Minimal," Krathhook replied, manipulating the display to show human spacecraft. "A few hundred vessels total, mostly designed for resource extraction and transportation. Their largest military vessels appear to be primitive chemical propulsion craft, armed with what they call missiles." The council erupted in laughter, a sound like grinding stone that had preceded the destruction of 43 civilizations. Chemical propulsion. It was almost insulting to dignify such primitives with formal conquest protocols. "Population?" Vex Talon inquired, though he was already mentally allocating human worlds to his various generals. "Approximately 8 billion on their homeworld, with scattered colonies, totaling perhaps 50 million more. Acceptable numbers for a workforce, though we'll need to cull the aggressive tendencies out of them." "Standard procedure then," Vex Talon decided, demanding submission through demonstration of superior force, followed by systematic pacification of resistance. "How long until our battle fleet can be in position?" "The Third Conquest Fleet can reach their system in 48 standard hours." Admiral Zekmar reported from her position at the tactical displays. 200 dreadnoughts, 400 support vessels, and a full complement of planetary bombardment platforms. Complete overkill for such a primitive target. What none of them had discovered, what their intelligence networks had completely failed to identify, was that Earth was not just home to humans. It was also the carefully concealed headquarters of something the galaxy knew only in whispered legends, the Terran Confederacy. The primitive humans their scouts had observed were actually just the tip of an iceberg that stretched across 17 star systems, encompassing colonies, research stations, and military installations that had been specifically designed to remain hidden from galactic surveillance. Humanity had learned early that letting others underestimate you was often more valuable than demonstrating your true capabilities. 2 days later, the Draconian Third Conquest Fleet translated into the Sol system with the casual confidence of apex predators entering a petting zoo. What they found waiting for them was not a primitive civilization armed with chemical rockets. "Admiral," sensor operator Thisik whispered, her voice barely audible over the bridge's tactical systems. "I'm detecting anomalous readings." Admiral Zekmar turned from her contemplation of the small blue world they were about to conquer. "Specify." "Ma'am, I'm reading energy signatures consistent with quantum tunnel generation. Multiple sources. Very large sources." The main display activated automatically, and Admiral Zekmar felt her blood chill as space around her fleet began to distort. Quantum tunnels were opening, not just one or two, but dozens of them, forming a perfect sphere around the Draconian formation. Emerging from those tunnels came ships that redefined everything the Draconians thought they knew about human technology. These weren't primitive chemical propulsion vessels. These were sleek, predatory warships that made the Draconian dreadnoughts look like obsolete cargo haulers. "This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet," a voice announced over their communications, speaking perfect Draconian, despite the fact that first contact had supposedly occurred only minutes ago. "High Commander Vextalon, you have committed an act of war against the Terran Confederacy. Congratulations, you just declared war on the wrong species." Admiral Zekmar's tactical display began updating with information that made her question everything. The human fleet that had just materialized consisted of over 3,000 vessels, each one radiating energy signatures that exceeded anything in Draconian databases. "Admiral Chen," she transmitted, fighting to keep her voice steady, "there has been a misunderstanding. Our intelligence indicated that your species was confined to this single system with primitive technology." "Your intelligence was supposed to indicate that," Admiral Chen replied, and Zekmar could hear the smile in her voice. "We found it useful to let aggressive species discover our primitive colonies first. Helps us identify who needs to be educated about proper galactic citizenship." The implications hit Admiral Zekmar like a physical blow. The scattered human settlements, the primitive technology, the apparent disunity, it had all been an elaborate deception designed to lure aggressive species into revealing themselves. "How many Confederacy worlds are there?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Currently, about 400 inhabited systems, with another 1,000 outposts and research stations. We've been expanding quietly for about 3 centuries now, building relationships with peaceful species while keeping an eye on the more problematic civilizations. On cue, additional quantum tunnels opened throughout the system, disgorging more human vessels until the Draconian fleet was completely surrounded by a force that outnumbered them 10 to 1. "Admiral Chen," Admiral Zekmar said carefully, "what are your terms?" "Simple. The Draconian Empire will withdraw all forces to your original 3-system territory. You will release all enslaved populations, and you will place yourselves under Confederacy oversight until we're satisfied you've learned to play nicely with others. And if we refuse..." Admiral Chen's response was not words, but demonstration. A single human vessel, no larger than a Draconian frigate, fired a weapon that completely vaporized the largest moon of Sol 4, turning it into an expanding cloud of particles that registered on sensors as nothing more than dust. "That was our smallest combat vessel using its lightest weapon," Admiral Chen explained conversationally. "Your choice, Admiral. Surrender now, or find out what our dreadnoughts can do." As Admiral Zekmar stared at the expanding debris field, where a moon had existed seconds before, she realized that the Draconian Empire had just made the same mistake that 43 other species had made before them. They had assumed that because humanity appeared weak, they actually were weak. The galaxy was about to learn that there was a significant difference between appearing primitive and being primitive, and the Terran Confederacy was about to give everyone a very comprehensive education on that distinction.